Mr. Robot has to bump into an employee, and he's going through the line, and he basically has this device in a bag on his chest. And when he bumps into the employee, he grabs the information from the card, and then they go back home. They store the data from the card, and then go home, and they take that information and clone the card, and then use that card to get in. The first step, okay, in being able to clone these cards is, first of all, place the card on top of the Proxmark. And when it's on top of there, you should see some lights go on, and then we'll go LF. This is low frequency search. Let's see if we can read it.
I really want to thank Brilliant for sponsoring this video and supporting my channel. Here's an example of why I really like their training. They have this course, Designing Programs. Hone your coding skills by writing complex programs to build games and apps. We start with programming a game, and then they go through options such as decomposition, event-driven programming, functions debugging, arguments and scope, internal variables, etc. But notice how interactive this training is. So I'm going to start this lesson on programming a game. And in this lesson, we're going to program a very famous game. So I'll click continue. And we asked to add a statement, run and check our code. So let's start the problem. Notice they've taken us into a gaming environment, and we need to code the program by adding statements. So this block needs to obviously move left by 1, but then we need to move it down by, let's say, 5. So we put that value in, and then we click run, and hopefully we've solved the game. And as you can see, we have. Now we need to rearrange and delete statements. So this is really basic programming that you need to learn. So as an example, how do we rearrange or delete statements to complete this task and make sure that that block fits nicely? So first thing I would do is rotate 90 degrees, and then we need to move it down by 6. So we could delete these 2 statements, and hopefully if we run the program, I've done this successfully. And as you can see, I have. Now, what about this one? Now we need to look at rotation. So we need to rotate this, and I would say 270. Then we need to move it down. I'm not quite sure here. Let's say 6. Maybe that works. Click run program. And I think I got that right. How did you do by going through this? Okay, here's a more complicated one. How would you do this? Here we need to add a loop and nest some statements. So I equal to 1, 2, 3. Let's add that statement. We're going to want to move this right and move this down, I would say. So let's run that and see if that works and check problem. Looks like we passed the test. So as you can see, very basic programming concepts are taught here. This is going to get more and more complicated as you go through the course. So you're going to have to learn, as an example, how to display fireworks and play the game. What I really love about this, very interactive, very hands-on. You're basically learning to code by, guess what? Coding. Might be simple coding initially, gets more complicated as you go on, but that's how you learn to code. Start with something simple, but what's nice about this is it's a game, which makes it more fun. It's very interactive, very hands-on. You're learning by doing, not just by watching someone else do it. To try everything that Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/David Bombal. You'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Hey everyone, it's David Bombal back with the amazing OTW. OTW, welcome.
Thank you, David. It's always an honor to be back on your show, the best IT and cybersecurity channel on YouTube.
Always appreciate you saying that. Just for everyone who doesn't know OTW, and you should by now, he is the author of this book, Linux Basics for Hackers. Very, very popular book on Amazon. He's also written other books. One of my favorites, Network Basics for Hackers, and he's also got Getting Started Becoming a Master Hacker. So check those books out. I'll put links below if you're interested. OTW, I don't want to put you on the spot, but hopefully at some point we're going to get a new Linux Basics for Hackers, right?
Yeah, it's in the process right now, and the preliminary schedule is, I believe, it's scheduled to come out like April or May of next year. So yes,
2025.
And it'll have 2025, right? 2025, and it'll be all up to date with the new Kali and some of the changes that have been taking place in Kali. As your viewers know, we've been doing a series on Linux Basics for Hackers. I think we're up to like chapter 6 or something like that. And so that's all updated there. That's all new stuff. We also have the complete course on Hackers Arise that the viewers can purchase there. Or if you're a student there, you get it for free.
Yeah, I'll put that link below for everyone who wants to watch the videos that we've done talking about the basics of Linux with the updated book. But OTW, one of our most popular videos has been Mr. Robot. And it's been a long time since we've done a Mr. Robot video, and a lot of people have asked for it. So I'm very happy to hear what you've got to share today. I believe it's a Mr. Robot hack thing, and you're also going to talk about the technology, right?
Yes, well, I love doing Mr. Robot,
Yeah.
and I think we should do more in the future.
Yeah.
I love doing them. I think the viewers love watching them, and as you know, Mr. Robot's really like my favorite hacker show, maybe my favorite show, and so it's fun to go through the hacks that he does in that show and try to dissect them and see what he's actually doing. Because a lot of people don't know that the hacks that he is doing are real hacks. There's almost I can't think of any hack in the show that's not real. The only thing that's not real is the time frame. Right, so he'll do things very, very quickly that might take hours or days. Right, so that's the only real difference between what he's doing there and reality. Unlike a lot of TV shows and movies that are totally unrealistic.
I agree with you. It's a great show for anyone who's interested in like real world hacking. But I want to keep quiet now and hand it to you. What are we going to be looking at specifically today?
Okay, well, let's talk about the show a little bit so that the viewers who are new here can get some perspective on what's taking place. So we're talking about episode 5 from season 1. All right, so Elliot and the F Society crew have decided that they need to destroy the backup tapes, okay, from Evil Corp, E Corp or Evil Corp, right? And those tapes are all in storage at a company called Steel Mountain, right? That is up in apparently upstate New York, if I remember correctly. And that's actually, there is a real company in the United States called Iron Mountain that does exactly the same thing. Iron Mountain stores tapes and digital media and actually paper media as well. That's what they do for companies. And they put them in these fireproof, impenetrable facilities. And the Steel Mountain facility actually has a sign in front of it in the show that says impenetrable, right? And so
First mistake, right?
Yeah, right. You never say unhackable or impenetrable. If you do that, you're just asking for trouble, right? And so they have to find a way to get into this facility to put inside, in this case, they're going to put in a Raspberry Pi into the facility to control the HVAC system. So one of the beauties of Mr. Robot as well, one of the things I love about it is that they do a lot of SCADA hacking, like the prison hack. And then this is a SCADA hack too, where they're going to go into the HVAC, the heating and air conditioning system, and be able to turn the temperature up on one of the holding facilities so that it will make the tapes unusable. Right? So they go put a Raspberry Pi in. This episode involves a lot of social engineering. And so I'm going to repeat what I've said so many times on your show and in my classes, and that social engineering is really, really important. Yeah. And anybody who ignores the importance of social engineering, you ignore it at your own peril, because about 80% of all hacks have some social engineering aspect to it, right? So there's always a technical aspect. But there sometimes, most of the time, there's a social engineering aspect. And this episode 5 has a lot of social engineering. And the first portion of the social engineering is that they have to somehow get inside the facility. Now, the facility is well protected. It says it's impenetrable, right? And so they, first of all, in the previous episode, they have hacked a car, which we've done here on your show. They've hacked a car, and they're driving this minivan up to upstate New York to get to the Evil Corp storage facilities, and they have to get in. They know that there's all the entry points are protected by card keys, right? So to get in, you have to present a card key, a legitimate card key, to get in past the gate. And so what they do, what they decide to do, is that they find a coffee shop near the facility, right, and look for people who have their card keys, their lanyards around their neck with the card key from Steel Mountain. And once they've identified this, and this isn't explicitly stated in the show, but it's what's actually happening, they end up in a coffee shop, and then it becomes a social engineering effort to be able to get close enough to the card around the employee's neck to copy the card, right? And this technology has been around for 10, 12 years. So it actually came out just before the show was presented. And it first came out, I think Bishop Fox was the company who first developed the cloning technology. And basically what it does is it just reads the data off the card, right? Stores it in memory, and then you can go ahead and clone the card and make exactly the same card. And so that's what their strategy is here. And back when the show was made, the technology required that you get very, very close to the card, almost touch it. But in recent years, several companies, some security researchers have come out with technology that allows you to be able to clone or copy the card up to 2 or 3 feet. It's basically putting more powerful antennas in. So at the time the show was made, he had to find a way to actually get right next to the card. And that's where the social engineering aspect came in. So Mr. Robot, not Elliot, but his father, played by Christian Slater, has to bump into an employee, and he's going through the line, and he basically has this device in a bag on his chest, and he bumps into an employee, and when he bumps into the employee, he grabs the information from the card, and then they go back home. They stored the data from the card into storage, into the little device that he's holding in a bag, and then go home, and they take that information and clone the card, and then use that card to get in, using essentially his ID to get inside the facility. And then they have much more social engineering, for those of you who've seen the show, to be able to get inside the facility and find the storage tape. So that's kind of where the fun part becomes. But the first step is they have to get inside the facility.
So just for everyone who's watching, we actually did a video on like the tapes, didn't we? And we did the Raspberry Pi piece. So I'll link those videos below. So we actually covered that OTW, which is great. So anyone who's interested in that can watch that as well. But I got to ask you the question, because I love it when people call me a boomer. So that I'm not accused of being a boomer and old-fashioned. This was created before the days of flipperzero, right? So could they have done something similar today, just using the flipperzero?
Yes, there's many different types of cards. So in the show, they're using a low-frequency card that doesn't have much in the way of any type of encryption, right? But there's dozens of types of cards. And one of the things that is important to note is that some of the more modern cards have additional encryption and security measures. And the flipperzero can't do anything about those. Whereas the Proxmark has the capability of, one, it has like 1,900 default passwords, okay, that you can try first to break into these cards. And then it also has a brute force password cracking. So these cards, the more secure ones, you can't just make a clone of them. You have to be able to have a password that's encrypted on the card to be able to make a clone of it or to change any of the information. The Proxmark has that capability. In addition, we just had, last week, we had a new paper came out that some researchers in France were able to find a backdoor to the MyFair Classic, which is the most widely used of these encrypted cards, so that you don't even require the password. So here what we want to do is we just want to replicate what they did in Mr. Robot, which is a pretty simple, relatively simple hack that you can simply capture the information from a card like they did on the show, and then go ahead and clone it. And we're going to be using the Proxmark, which has been around for a while. and it's probably the leading tool for doing RFID card hacking.
So OTW, you've just teased us about this article. You got to tell us more. What actually happened?
Well, what happened is I'm going to pull it up on the screen here for you, is that some researchers in France had come and found some backdoors into the most common cards. There's millions of these cards out there, and the MyFair cards are a technology that has been developed by NXP Technologies, the old Philips, okay, and that's the leading technology in these RFID cards. And so these researchers here, okay, so significant backdoor in contactless cards made by China-based Shanghai Fudan Microelectronics allows instantaneous cloning of RFID cards used to open office doors and hotel rooms around the world. So this is FM11R F08 cards, okay, and they've got a backdoor in them that these researchers discovered. So these cards, which are used in a lot of secure facilities, are now going to be vulnerable to cloning. So this is one of the things that is happening. This is just last week, so this is brand new, and of course this was what happened to Mr. Robot happened 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago now. So they did some of the old attacks against these systems, which is a low frequency card, okay, that's often used for these gates, and they're relatively easy to clone. Now, you don't have to crack any passwords. You don't have to find the back doors in them. You can simply copy them and then make a clone of them. We're using the Proxmark. Let's go ahead and take a look at what the Proxmark looks like, and I'll pull it up on the screen here. Proxmark is I guess I think I paid about $80 for mine. All right, give you some idea what they cost. Okay. One of the things that I do want to mention for those people who are interested in using the Proxmark, there it is right there, is make sure that you get the upgraded Proxmark that has 512K in it, because 512 megs, I'm sorry, because the firmware, the new firmware, the Iceman firmware, is going to take up about 350 megs. So as a result, if you get the older ones that only have 256, you're not going to be able to use the new firmware. That's the Proxmark. I've got one sitting here on my desk. I got it all set up. Setting it up is a little bit of a challenge. It's got a lot of dependencies, but once you get it all set up, it works great. Okay, so you can see here, I've gone ahead and got it all set up into a directory called Proxmark, and then the command is simply pm3. One of the beauties of the Iceman firmware, right, is that he's got a lot of great help screens on it, and it's got these nested help screens, and so you could go to help screen just about any place to be able to find out what you need to do. So here's the help screen on it. The first step, okay, in being able to clone these cards is, first of all, place the card on top of the Proxmark. Of course, right? It has to be close enough to read. And when it's on top of there, you should see some lights go on, all right? And then we'll go LF. This is low frequency search. Let's see if we can read it. And there it is, okay? So what we've got is the basic information about this card. And there's a lot of things that we can do with it. Once we have that information, we could also do this high frequency search as well. Try that, okay? High frequency search, and it's going ahead and searching, and the lights are flashing, and it says basically it doesn't have any of the high frequency. This is not a high frequency card. This is a low frequency card, right? This is the kind that they show in the show. Also, it detected, okay, that it's an EM410X, okay? It also tells us that this is the type of chipset that's being used, the T55XX, which is one of the older and least secure of the technologies used in these cards. So once we've got that, we can go and then do LF, okay, and then HID, read, all right, and then we can go ahead and let's go and take the tag off this one. All right, there it is, the unique tag ID right there. Let's copy it, and I'm going to take another card, All right, and a blank card because that was one that's been used. All right, let me see if I have another blank card of low frequency card here. I'm sure I do somewhere. Ah, here we go. Okay, here's another low frequency card. And what we want to do now is to go ahead and use that tag ID. All right, so go LF hid, right? And then this tag ID, paste it there. No, it's not going to let me paste from the clipboard. There it is. And then hit enter. And it's coming back with an error message here. Let's see what it's saying. All right. Oh, I forgot the keyword clone. That'll do it. Okay, let's go LF. Okay, hid clone. And then, all right, got to tell it to clone it. And then paste in the clipboard. And there it goes. Looks like it says preparing a clone, hit try. Oh, hid reader to verify. Okay, it did went ahead and cloned. Okay, now it says go ahead and try hid reader to verify. All right, it did its job. All right, now let's go and do an LF hid reader to verify. All right, we did it. Good job. So now what we have is a card that's identical to the one that they had identified in the coffee shop. All right. And then they went ahead and stored that information and then created a clone of it. Now, this card is going to be exactly the same as the one that the employee had, which is going to enable them to get in through the gate. Now, it's important to note that not all of these cards are this simple to clone. The one in the
Yep.
show is, all right? But
Same
I
with the
can show
flipperzero,
you,
man. It's
yeah,
always the easy ones are easy to clone. Yeah. Sorry, go.
there's some that are very easy to clone, and the ones that are typically used in these gates are these low frequency cards that don't have a lot of security built into them. And these are the variety, okay, of cards that are out here. This is only these are just the MyFair cards that are out there. And you can see there's all different types. And the ones that the researchers found the back door in are these in this area right here. But you can see that if you look at the security in here, right, some of the security is relatively low. But as you get into the more and more advanced ones, you're talking about they end up with DES and triple DES. I'm trying to see where it points that out. DES and triple DES, and actually AES on some of the more advanced ones. This one, so DES and triple DES. So you can see these here, and then AES 128 and these. So these cards have a small chip inside of them and an antenna, and then they can go ahead and put credentials in that will enable some security into these cards. And one of the things the Proxmark does is that it actually will allow you to, one, try to crack the credentials, by using the default. And most surprisingly, a lot of these cards have default credentials in them, like we find everywhere in the cybersecurity world. People leave in the default credentials, and if that's the case, it only takes a few minutes to crack them. If they don't have the default credentials in, then it can take some period of time, sometimes hours, to go do a brute force attack. Okay, but it's only, I think the passwords are just 2 bytes, so it doesn't take that long to go ahead and try all the possibilities. And they're numeric, by the way. They are a numeric 2-byte passwords, so it doesn't take that long to go through all the possibilities and do a brute force attack. And of course, if you know what the back door is, then you don't need the password at all to be able to clone these cards. In some institutions, these are used with, like for instance, some cities use them for bus tokens, like to ride the bus, and they have a amount of money stored on them. Once you're able to break the encryption, then you can not only clone the card, but you can change the amount that is actually on there. Some schools and universities use it for students who use in cafeterias, what have you. So once you're able to break the encryption on these cards, there's a lot of possibilities here. And this is really one of the least understood areas of IoT hacking. And that's one of the reasons why we've put together an IoT hacking class in October. We'll be doing more on RFID, NFC, Bluetooth, BLE, and a number of other technologies that are used in IoT devices.
I'm glad you're doing that because it was funny. I just saw at Defcon some of the hotels were having forced inspection of rooms, confiscating
Yes.
tools. Did you hear about that? So you tell us a story because
Yes.
you're a good storyteller. So tell us.
Well, I wasn't there,
Yeah.
okay, and but
Well, I
there
don't know if I
was
believe you, but we assume you weren't there. Go on.
if I'm there, you don't know I'm there.
Exactly.
That's the important part.
Yeah.
So what happened is that the hotels felt really uncomfortable about having all these hackers around,
Yep.
and they were doing inspections within the hotel rooms looking for Wi-Fi hacking and other hacking tools, which I think is going to put off a lot of the security researchers, the hackers. I doubt that Defcon is going to come back to those hotels again next year. I mean, they basically instituted a forced inspection of
Yeah.
rooms, which really put a lot of people off, and
Yep.
people felt very uncomfortable about that. But you can also understand their perspective that if you've got a hotel full of hackers, right? If you got a hotel and you don't know if anything is safe. And also
Yep.
remember that the hotels in Las Vegas got hit with ransomware last year. Remember
Yep.
that?
Yep.
Right? So and it cost them tens of millions of dollars in ransomware ransoms. So they're particularly worried about that type of a type of attack. But I don't know that going ahead and inspecting rooms without permission is the best way to handle that. So yeah, there's a lot of attacks that require in a world where we have IoT devices that are growing at exponential rates. I mean, inside of people's homes, there's all kinds of devices now that are connected by some wireless technology, whether it be RFID, NFC, near field communication, Bluetooth, what have you. A lot of these technologies have relatively weak security. And one of the things that I most worry about is that these devices get hacked and then become part of a botnet. And then those botnets get directed against a company, a country, right? I mean, that's how powerful these botnets can be. And then this can be a form of ransomware. So if I have a million IoT devices all sending packets to your particular web server, what has happened in the past is that they demand a ransom to stop the DDoS attack. And I've actually, at Hackers Arise, we had a similar attack a few years ago where attackers came to us and said, if you pay us off now, we won't attack your website. And I laughed at them. And they attacked, and they took down our website for about 20 minutes or a half hour, and we were able to block them. They were not real sophisticated attackers. We were able to block them pretty easily, and we paid them nothing at all. But if they had millions of devices, okay, and if they had done a relatively sophisticated DDoS attack, so one of the things that's important to note about a lot of these devices is that these devices have a Linux kernel in them, a very tiny Linux kernel. And so if I gain control of your device, I've got this little Linux kernel that I can use to send packets to any place in the world. And so we saw, for instance, the Mirai botnet a few years ago. What was that, 2018, somewhere around there, the Mirai botnet, where we had millions of IoT devices that had all had default passwords in them, which many of them do, all being directed against a number of different companies. And this became a huge problem. And I suspect that we're going to see this again very soon. I've been warning our students and our clients that this is something to be prepared for. That's one of the reasons why I've been doing more and more on DDoS, because I think this is something that's going to be more important in the future if it isn't right now. I mean, we've seen a number of DDoS attacks that have been very effective, especially in cyber warfare, where a country will DDoS another country as they invade, right? So cut off communications. So if you can DDoS the country, then you cut off communications between, say, the military branches and the government. And this has happened multiple times. These IoT devices can be a way to generate incredible DDoS attacks larger than we've ever seen before. And if nothing else, these devices, oftentimes like the RFID devices that we're talking about here, are ways that we secure a lot of different facilities. These are used for cards to get into secure locations, to get into schools, to get into businesses. In the case of Mr. Robot, they were used to get into Steel Mountain. And the older ones, like those that are used in Mr. Robot, are really, really simple to be able to clone. As you get into the more modern ones that have some cryptographic security, those can also be broken, as this article in Security Week shows, is that some of them, that are the most widely used technology, which is the MyFair Classic, has backdoors built into it that make it easy to be able to change. Basically what you're doing is that once you've got the password, then you can change the data on the card. For instance, the identity, the facility, the dollar amount, all those things can be changed once you have the credentials. So if you have a backdoor on these cards, it would allow the attacker to clone the card and put any data they want into the card.
Should I buy a flipperzero or should I buy a Proxmark?
One of the things
Loaded question, right?
Yeah, it's a loaded question. I have both. Okay.
Yeah.
And the beauty of the Proxmark, if you're looking at RFID, then the Proxmark has a lot of capabilities that the flipperzero doesn't.
Yeah.
The flipperzero is kind of first of all, I want to thank the developers of flipperzero for raising awareness of all of the radio hacks, all the radio signals that can be hacked out there, because this is something that I've been talking about and promoting for a long time, saying, hey, this is an area of cybersecurity that's really underappreciated. So once the flipperzero came out, everybody went, oh my God, look at all the things that can be done. So I'm thankful to the flipperzero for that. I think it's a limited device. I hate to say that you need to buy a Proxmark, but if you're going to do RFID hacking, I think the Proxmark is really the only way to go. I'm not saying don't buy a flipperzero. I'm saying if you want to do RFID, I think the Proxmark 3 is the device of choice.
I think it's great about the flipperzero. You've said it before the past as well, right? It's raised awareness and it's got a whole new generation interested in cybersecurity. And flipperzero is limited, but it shows you the possibilities, right? And shows you what's out there.
The other thing I want to point out here to a lot of your viewers is that I get people writing me and saying, well, I want to start in cybersecurity, but I can't afford to buy all the devices.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And like, no, you don't need all those devices. Start simple. Start with your laptop. Start with Kali or one of the other cybersecurity Linux distributions, and start from there. You don't need to buy all those devices. I had several people say, "Oh, I've got a laptop, but now I can't afford to buy all the devices that I need to become a cybersecurity hacker." Right?
Well, I need all the gadgets. Yep.
You don't need all the gadgets, right? Start small, start simple, and then you'll figure out what gadgets you do need, because there's a lot of gadgets out there right now, and many of them are duplicative. They do the same thing. So don't feel like you need to buy all the gadgets before you get started. In an earlier video, we talked about what you need to get started in terms of laptop. And what I said then is that don't worry about getting the latest and greatest laptop, right? Because in hacking, 80% of hacking is the human being sitting behind the screen. Only about 20% is the actual computer. And computer speed is not that important in hacking. It's the skill level and some, more important is skill level, but also some tools. And none of those tools really are dependent upon speed. So if you can only afford a 10-year-old, a cheap laptop, go get it. Don't wait till you can go out and buy, the latest and greatest. And some people think that hacking is kind of like gaming, that you need to have the super computer to be able to hack. No, that's not the case. A gaming computer is very different than a hacking computer, right? You don't need like a super graphics card to be able to do hacking. Now, a super graphics card can be useful for password cracking, okay, and other applications, but you don't need it. Now, there's other ways to cracking passwords without a GPU. So what I want to reiterate here is that make sure you get started. Don't worry about the machine. Just make sure you have a machine and then start studying. Start learning. Davis Channel is a great place to start your learning.
Occupy the Web, I always get this about books, right? Have you read this book and do you recommend it?
I really like that book. We're going to be using segments of that book in our IoT Hacking class. It's written by some experts in the field, and it's a no starch book. No starch books are always excellent, so I would highly recommend that book.
Occupy the Web, I went through this book. I also thought it was great. I did find that it went into the weeds about a lot of stuff. Is there a section specifically on what we've been discussing? And, do you like it?
Yeah, I love the book. And there's a whole section called radio hacking. And on that radio hacking, they have RFID, which I think is excellent. And they also have a whole section on Bluetooth, okay, and Bluetooth low energy, which we'll also be doing in our upcoming IoT hacking class. They also have hacking Wi-Fi, and they also do a lot on the threat landscape, right? The IoT threat landscape. They talk about that. They kind of introduce it, and so you get some idea of how, what types of things that you should be concerned about in this and why you should be concerned about it. And then they also go into smart home hacking at the end of that book as well. So I highly recommend the book. I think people should take a look at it, make an investment in it. You can almost always guarantee that a no starch press book is going to be excellent. I mean, I'm a little biased here. Linux Basics for Hackers comes from No Starch, and I know the people at No Starch well. I think but before I published with No Starch, I had a lot of No Starch books on my shelf, right? Because they are excellent.
Yeah, I'm going to say, I need to just clarify something. So I just wanted to show that. Hopefully the viewers can see that. They're showing the Proxmark, and they're showing a bunch of things about the cards. So maybe we can put up some B-roll about it. So like a lot of the stuff we discussed that really go into, I really enjoyed that. But I will have to, just for transparency, No Starch sent me this book. So they've sent me some books, but I'm like you. I bought a lot of books myself. And since I've been interviewing authors from No Starch, they've been sending me books. So I'm not paid anything by No Starch to review their books. I simply get their books for free. So just for transparency, note that. So Occupy the Web, I bought your books, and I've also bought a whole bunch of other books, but I'd agree with you. A lot of the No Starch books are excellent. And the authors are great, right? They're people in the industry, which is what's so important. It's not people who are just talking about the industry. There's people that are actually experts in the industry.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with a No Starch. There's been some, over the years, there's been some books that have been not the best, but in general, the best books in the industry are coming out of No Starch.
I love about cybersecurity, it's so wide, and it's that's why I love interviewing different guests. Like you focusing now more on IoT stuff, and it's so wide. Every time I interview someone else, it's a whole world, and I think that's the encouragement for anyone who started. Right, just get started and see which area you like, because there's so many cool areas to get into.
Right. And you're not generally, people are not going to become generalists. They're going to find an area that interests them, they're good at, and they're going to focus on that. So you don't need all the gadgets that are out there. I remember I've had people, I need a Raspberry Pi, I need a Pineapple, I need a Flipperzero, I need a Hack RF one, I need No, you don't need all those things. Get yourself a laptop, start from there. If you want to get into radio hacking or IoT hacking, you might have to buy some additional devices, but that's still down the line. That's a little more advanced stuff. First of all, get yourself familiar with Linux, right? And all the tools that are built into, say, a Kali and how to use them. Understand Linux, understand Windows, understand networking. Those are all the basics you need to get started. And then, if you need, then you might go out and buy one or two gadgets here or there, but don't feel like to get started. I mean, literally in the last month or so, I've had several people say, I can't afford to buy all the gadgets.
Yep.
You don't need all the gadgets. No. Get started.
I love it. So, Occupy the Web, that's a great way to end off. So, really appreciate you sharing. I love that. Just get started, right? Just do it.
Always good to be on your show.